maybe practice squad guys coming to the season and trying to make things happen. And yet Phillip Rivers continues to play really good into his mid-30s. So we'll see if the Chargers can get things done. What do you think does this have any change to what you think of the Chargers coming into this next season?
I still think the Chargers could be successful this year. I think the loss of Hunter Henry is huge. I really think that they were going to put all their eggs in the Hunter Henry basket this year. And we saw what he was able to do towards the end of last year. And really, for half the season, he was really putting it on. And I think this is why they got rid of Antonio Gates before, was so that they could invest the time and energy into Hunter Henry. But now it looks like things are going to change, and they're going to have to go in a different direction. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this team without Hunter Henry, one of their young, talented tight ends.
Yeah, and maybe the biggest continual storyline in the NFL right now is the Dez Bryant saga. I mean, there hasn't been a ton of new developments, but I guess the latest is that Ian Rappaport yesterday reporting that Dez Bryant probably won't sign before training camp unless there's a big injury. He's kind of taking his time. There's been some interest from different teams, but he is not trying to rush into anything. Do you think that's a good strategy for Dez to try to wait it out and see, maybe pick his spots a little more and pick the spot that is best for him, and by waiting until training camp starts?
I'm sorry, it cut out. What did you say?
Do you think Dez Bryant's strategy of kind of waiting until training camp starts to pick a team that he wants to go to is the best strategy for his best success going forward, or do you think he should try to get in as quickly as possible and kind of get acclimated and maybe meet his teammates before training camp so he can get a little more continuity with them?
I gotta be honest with you. I missed anything that's happened with Dez Bryant. So he has been signed or has not?
He has not been signed.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I thought you said that he had been signed for some reason. No. My mic is cutting in and out. Okay, so you can hear me though, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. No, I think that the reason why Dez Bryant is waiting for himself to sign with the team is because, one, he wants a 1-year deal where he's going to be able to get a, play it deal. We saw Alshon Jeffrey do last year with the Eagles, where it was a prove-it deal, a 1-year contract, and then if he outperforms on that contract, he can get a higher pay grade for next year when he signs with either the same team or another team that wants his talents and services. I think it's a smart move. I think that there is a Baltimore Ravens offer him a multi-year contract, and he turned it down because he wants that 1-year prove-it deal. He doesn't want to play under the fact that he'll have to stay with the team for multiple years and get paid the same salary where he can, it's not going to be much, because what we've seen over the last couple of years is them not throwing it to him as much. So I think he wants to do a 1-year prove-it deal to prove that he's still a top receiver in the league, which I still think he can be. I think he's a little bit of a headache, but I still think he has the same potential as he did when he was a younger player. And I think what he's going to do is he's going to wait until training camp starts. Injuries are going to happen. We see it every single year. Top players go out in the preseason or in the training camp. And I think he's just going to wait it out until someone gets hurt and the right team comes crawling, a team that needs, just a player or two away. I think that he's going to wait for the right opportunity to the right team for the right amount of money. And I think he doesn't have to do anything right now. I think his agents just tell him, listen, man, just sit back and relax, enjoy the offseason, because it's going to be a long road until we're able to play again, because we're going to wait for that big contract to come once the opportunity presents itself.
It would be an interesting move for him to go? Be interesting to see him go to the Giants. Obviously, a division rival of the Cowboys. They have the number one receiver in Odell Beckham Jr., and I don't know how the room would fit the egos between Odell Beckham Jr. and Dez Bryant. And they have a guy in Sterling Shepard who's probably going to be their number 2 receiver. But if you have Dez Bryant, my opinion right now is that Dez Bryant, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season, I believe, in the last 3 or 4 seasons. He's not really a number 1 guy. He could be a very good number 2 receiver, but I don't see him being the main focus of a passing game anymore. He just doesn't seem to be that guy, with either his injury history or he just kind of dogs it on some plays. But if he is a number 2 guy behind Odell Beckham Jr. You have Eli Manning, or at least a shell of Eli Manning there, and obviously you now have a star running back in the backfield in Saquon Barkley. I think that could be a fascinating move, especially considering it's a division rival. I think that would be a fun addition to that whole NFC East hierarchy, but we'll see what happens. I agree that kind of doing his thing right now and waiting to see what happens if a number one receiver goes down and he can slide into a spot and get that 1 year deal and try to play his best through that. I think that's probably the best option for an NFL team as well. I don't know why someone would offer him a 2 year deal. Obviously, NFL contracts are structured differently than a fully guaranteed NBA deal. But with Dez Bryant, you kind of want him on a contract year every year because he is not a guy who is known to just bring it no matter what. He kind of has his on and off days and games. So interesting to see what happens with Dez. Like I said, I don't think he is a bona fide number one anymore. I think he's a very skilled number two. And I think that would probably be the best spot for him to go behind a star receiver and be a complimentary guy.
Yeah, no, I get where we all know how much Dez has been saying that he wants to be, in New York or not in New York. He wants to be in the NFC East to really against the Cowboys and play them twice a year. I could see the Giants be that team. So I can also see Washington be that team. I'm open to seeing multiple teams go after this. The only team I don't see in the NFC East is the Eagles. They have no reason to even risk the headache of just won the Super Bowl last year and going to be just as good this year.
Right, and they need to. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any super big drama with the Eagles between Nick Foles and the whole entire quarterback hierarchy there, but there is a possibility that something like that happens, just with Nick Foles thinking he may need to play more. You don't need any more drama with Dez Bryant coming in there and stirring up that core anymore. I agree with that. He could go to Washington. Washington continues to try different receivers, and to some or limited success. And like I said, I think the Giants would be the best maybe fit of those three NFC East teams that he might want to go to. So we'll see if Dez agrees. I know there's been some rumors that he wants to join, that the Giants don't want him, but things change as people get injured or teams progress or whatnot. Anything else NFL-wise that catches your fancy these days, Bobby, or are you kind of just waiting until training camp starts and can get more deeper into the meat of it?
Yeah, there's really not much right now. This is the quiet time of the NFL. I always say, earlier this week we found out that it's less than 100 days until the regular season starts.
Yes.
But I always say the toughest time is from the day after the Super Bowl to the draft. That, in my opinion, is the slowest, most time-consuming lull in between the NFL seasons there is. After the NFL draft, that's when it really starts to pick up. Yes, right now we're in the lull as well, but come July, it's going to start jumping into things, training camp, preseason, blah, 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 and everything's going to start coming together. So, yes, it's a little bit of a downtime right now, but or so.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that. So, after the NBA Finals is over, that's between that and really the ramping up of the NFL, for me, is a slow time because I like the NFL and I could follow it 365, but right now most of my focus is on the NBA Finals. So I'm not too much missing the NFL storylines, but once the NBA Finals ends, I'll definitely will be. Although, hey, I'm excited for the NBA draft. The Kings getting the number 2 pick. Very excited for that. Now, Bobby, who's
got the number 1 pick? I missed it. Was it Suns?
Yeah, the Suns have the number 1 pick. Yeah. So interesting to see what they'll do with that. I think the consensus is they'll probably go Ayton with from Arizona, hometown guy. Obviously the same state, and just a guy who could be an absolute offensive force for them. So we'll see what rumors come about as that draws closer. But yeah, excited for the Kings. They're going to be back to the Western Conference Final next season. Not really, but hey, a guy can dream. Maybe Boogie comes back. He's like second pick. I want to play with him and De'Aaron Fox. Come back to the Kings. Jimmer Fredette, maybe. Who knows? Bobby, let's talk a tiny bit of baseball before we say goodbye for the day. I just want to talk about a little bit out this new trend of the openers. The Tampa Bay Rays have kind of started this thing. They've started Sergio Romo a few times to go through the first 3 or 4 hitters as the starter, and then they bring in what would be normally the starter to pitch, innings 3 through 7 or 8, and then bring in, the closer or whatever. It seems to be working, but there's some pushback from teams, kind of like, traditionalists saying this is not how baseball is supposed to be played. You're supposed to have a starter and then the bullpen. You can't start with the bullpen and then go to a guy who's going to go long. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts about this trend. I know the Dodgers did that yesterday. They had, I forget, maybe Scott Alexander started the game, a guy who was not going to go any further than 1 or 2 innings. Kind of an interesting wrinkle to Major League Baseball, and kind of a time where a lot of stuff seems to be changing from a sport that is very tradition-driven and a lot of pushback. So what are your thoughts on maybe this becoming a more prevalent strategy?
I don't have a lot of information on it. This is something that but I mean, if it's something that's going to work, then I have no problem with it. I don't know. Like I said, information on it, so I feel like this is something I shouldn't really get into, but what are your opinions on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I don't really agree with the traditionalists on many things, especially when it comes to baseball, because there's all these unwritten rules and all this kind of stuff that tries to take away from any new ideas coming into baseball, and it just seems like people who are being old grumps about things. Hey, if playing Sergio Romo, if starting him 3 days in a row and having him pitch an inning to get through the opponent's 1 through 4 hitters who are all righties, and taking advantage of that, I think that is a perfectly valid strategy. I think it's a new wrinkle to the game of baseball that teams might have to prepare for, a stud reliever to come in and pitch 1 or 2 innings and then allow a starter to come in and possibly go the rest of the way. And I know it's going to screw with, win totals, and it's going to screw with all of that, but I don't think that is as important to, really baseball as some people think it is. Look, starting pitchers aren't going as long nowadays anyways. You don't see a lot of 200-inning pitchers, now to begin with, so it's not like we're going to devalue a starting pitcher anymore. Really, the only valid argument I've heard against it was by a player on the Angels. I forget, it might have been Ian Kinsler, who said that this is the way that the MLB teams are going to try to devalue starting pitchers, that they're going to come in and say, well, since we don't have to start you every 5th day, we can use this opener, if you will, and you only pitch maybe 4 to 5 innings, we don't have to pay you as much money. And that's kind of an interesting point brought up by Kinsler, and saying that, look, this is a way to kind of tamp down player salaries, say, hey, if we just get a huge bullpen and only have 3 starters and just play some bullpen days, then maybe we don't have to pay a starting pitcher $20 million a year to be our workhorse. So it'll be interesting to see the way that different teams approach this, and see if more teams than just the Rays and maybe possibly Dodgers, who are really analytics driven, continue to push this trend further, or if it kind of dies down. I thought it was just kind of a interesting wrinkle to this early MLB season that is kind of making waves in baseball circles. So
it just shows what a big baseball fan I am, because all of that was I just never even noticed any of it.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, I mean, you're a Padres fan. There's not a ton for you to be excited about, so I don't blame you for playing in a very down NL West this year and still in last place. But hey, you're not too far out of it. You're like 8 games out of first place, even though you're like 10 games under 500. So, Bobby, if they make a run, I will let you know so you can start paying attention.
Okay. Let me know.
All right, Bobby. Anything else you want to talk about before we let you go for the day?
No, I think that's about it. We pretty much covered it all. It is kind of a slow time of the year right now for majority of sports, except for NHL and NBA, because it's their 2 biggest moments of the year for those 2 sports. But for other sports, it's kind of downtime. So I think we pretty much covered everything that's out in front of us right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And now I have put my schedule into my calendar now, Bobby, so I won't have anything sneaking up on me saying, oh, shoot, should we do this on Thursday now? I am 99% sure I can do the show on Wednesday. Do you think you can do it on Wednesday?
I'm 98% sure I can as well.
So we're like 97% combined sure that we will have the show actually on Wednesday, the day we thought we were going to do it every day.
But no promises.
No promises. We never promise things.